There she is. That's the girl that Jeffrey has a crush on. She sits down in the class and Jeffrey looks at her. He stares at her. She notices that he's looking at her and he doesn't look away. Jeffrey is one of those guys who stare at you and then continue staring when you realize that they're staring. This makes her feel creeped out and uncomfortable. A million thoughts process in Jeffrey's mind. Should he speak to her? What should he say? She's a why won't she? So what do you think happens next? Do you think Jeffrey gets the girl? Of course not. But what about Adonis? Adonis has eyes for the most beautiful woman in his tribe, Anastasia. How do you think a man like Adonis would navigate this situation? Do you think he would stare at her from afar, being a little wimpy coward? Of course not. Adonis walks up confidently, breathing right into his stomach. He gives her a genuine compliment and then he does something special. He piques her interest by saying that he will go slay the mighty boar in her name. He goes out to the hunt with his men and she can't help but just think about him around the clock. Will he return with the boar? Is he safe? Is he really doing this for just me? And return he did, for that is how Adonis won Anastasia's heart. I like to believe that I'm a pretty confident, social, romantic guy. I'm pretty good with interacting with the opposite sex, but I really had to work hard for this. Because when I was 17, 18 years old, and I had pretty much no experience with girls, bro. Literally, I was 17 years old and I hadn't even kissed the girl yet. There was a girl in my class and we'll call her Sarah. I had an obsessive crush over her. I didn't really know her that much. And when I look back to this now, the idolization that I had for her, I realize that's probably due to some kind of childhood trauma. Maybe we should talk about that some other day. But I had a massive crush on Sarah. We would be in the same class a few times a week and we would be sitting right next to each other. And so I would get to the class early. I'd be sat there just constantly thinking, okay, what am I going to say? She's going to come in any second. She would walk in the room always with one of her friends and sit down. Maybe I'd say hello to her. And so for the rest of the lesson, I wouldn't even be paying attention. The teacher would be trying to teach us things, talking to us about the upcoming exam, and I wouldn't be able to pay attention because I was literally just obsessed over this girl. At least there was one good thing that I did, which you've got to make sure that you do this as well. I never really creeped her out. I had some level of social intelligence to know that it's not okay to just stare at a woman and fucking mouth breathe at her. So she would be sat to my side and I would be pretending to pay attention to the teacher while she's kind of calculating my moves of what I could say to her. Weeks go by, months go by, and I never expressed these feelings. So I'm distracted in every lesson that we're together, just constantly thinking about this. And outside of these lessons, when I'd be back home, I had quite an obsessive crush over this girl. Bro, I would literally cuddle my pillow at nighttime thinking about. As a young man, you really do crave a huge sense of intimacy. It wasn't just entirely about lust. So here she is in my mind as the most important woman that, I'm constantly thinking about. I'm literally visualizing our life together. Hopefully, thinking that she feels the same way, which you answer for me. Do you think she felt the same way about me when I never even showed her my intentions? And then one random day, the worst thing that could have happened. I'm scrolling down Facebook and I see a post from her and it just says that Sarah is in a relationship with. Here she is, my baby girl, with this guy who is he? And I remember seeing that relationship status post and almost straight away it clicked for me and I was like, you know what? That guy would have made his intentions clear. I guarantee that guy hasn't had a crush on her for as long as I have. He probably somewhat liked her and told her straight away and advanced with that, whereas I really liked her but then never told her. What's really interesting is that whilst that hurt seeing that, almost within a day or two, all feelings for her just kind of disappeared and I had now moved on to the next crush of my life. And this is why I really do think it's quite important to just acknowledge that if you get these obsessive crushes, that might not be healthy. That might not be your natural desire for love, sex, and intimacy. And it might be some deep-rooted traumatic experiences that really cause you to obsess over someone who can give you a sense of love or security. So I still had classes with Sarah twice a week, 3 times a week. And knowing that she had this boyfriend really did hurt and really did make me feel uncomfortable being sat next to her. You can probably relate to this story and you might even be going through an experience which is very similar. And you know what, bro? I'm so grateful that I went through this. That heartache, that gut pain of regret of not making my intentions clear, of not just telling the girl that you like her. I'm glad that I went through this at age 17 because that really fueled me and put me out of my comfort zone to think, you know what, I really have to try next time. I really have to go and speak to the girl next time. I have to make my intentions more clear. So whilst this entire situation hurt, there was a lot of growth that came from it. Slowly and surely I got more confident and I started being able to polarize girls. And that's the word that you should really keep in mind, polarize. Polarize is when you kind of push someone to a more of an extreme end so that they really like you or they dislike you. You're probably staying safe and not polarizing anyone so that you stay in this middle gray ground where there's not really that many people who hate you, but there's also not that many people who love you. And this is a sad place to live. You'll never find love, happy friendships here. Just a few months of that little bird is loud as oh god. I'm gonna be in here on the vid. Just a few months of practicing speaking to girls and, you know, really making my intentions clear to them. I actually then got my first girlfriend and my first kiss. And then it took me about 2 years to actually get into like my first serious relationship. I wish that when I was in this situation, someone told me that regret is always worse than rejection. You have to be okay, if not even excited, to be rejected by a girl. And I know that sounds crazy. What? Be excited to be rejected. But if you aren't keen to be rejected, if you don't want to get rejected almost as fast as possible, the truth is you're going to experience so much more regret and like headache by just constantly thinking about the girl that you want. It's so much better to be rejected within a few minutes than it is within a few months. After being rejected, you get like almost a sense of release, like, okay, well, now I know. Whereas if you don't open yourself up to rejection because you're scared of it, you're scared what other people might think, you know, there's other people who will hear about the situation. She'll tell her friends and one of their friends might put it in the group chat, and you know, when you're scared of this entire situation, it actually hurts you a lot more. You have to know that it's absolutely okay, normal, and encouraged for a young man to speak to a woman. And if you really want to improve your dating skills, your ability to just meet a woman wherever you are, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that you have to be rejected hundreds of times over your life. You can't allow that to scare you. The first 50 rejections are the most painful and they're the most awkward, and most people will stop after like 5. But once you get past a certain number of women who have rejected you, it stops being as like emotionally damaging, and you just start to realize like, yep, we just weren't compatible, but I will continue making my intentions clear to the women I'm attracted to find the one that I am compatible with. So what happened with Sarah? I think she was in that relationship with that guy, you know, with the Facebook post for like literally years. Like they had a long-term relationship, and I honestly just forgot entirely about her because eventually I got a girlfriend, then eventually I went to university, I moved cities, I got into serious relationships, I dated girls, and I moved in with one. So I had a very serious relationship with a girl that I actually moved in with and lived with. Eventually I moved back to my hometown, and it was just recently that me and Sarah stumbled into each other. I recognized her straight away when I said her name. Like I saw her kind of like look at me slightly, and then something clicked and she said my name, and so she recognized me. We hugged and we spoke about like old times. It was really weird because we're both about 24 years old, but we spoke like we were old people, like talking about, you know, like, oh yeah, like, you know, how are things and like how's the family and shit. But it was really nice seeing her again. Something just clicked in my mind to tell this story because I've grown a lot since that moment, and I think there's so much value in teaching a young man to just have the confidence and speak to that girl, because no matter what the outcome is, as soon as you let your intentions clear, you just feel so much better and more confident and masculine. Share this video with one of your friends who might need it. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.